Welcome to this week's pocket edition of Faces of Africa, CGTN's documentary series showing unique and special Africans. I'm Daniel Funard, and this week I'm joined by Fathiya Nur, who just came back from vacation. Fathiya, what were you doing while you were off?
Hi, Daniel. I traveled to Mombasa in Kenya just for a few days to see the beach a bit, breathe. So it was really good, and I'm back in the office now.
Did you find any Faces of Africa characters?
Honestly, I was just thinking about myself. No work at all.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, but I know you've been working since you got back.
Right.
And one of the things I saw you working on was this week's episode, Healing Textiles. Can you tell us a little bit about what this is involving?
It's an interesting documentary from Mozambique, and we have this lady who starts off as a fashion designer and eventually sort of gets into traditional healing as a sangoma. And the story is beautifully told from the pictures and even the meanings to why she got into fashion in the first place and then why she became a traditional healer. So I think that's what the documentary is about, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, fashion design is something I think our audience would be interested in, both the males and the females.
Right, yeah.
Tell me what you thought. She started out, deciding she wanted to do fashion, and as a very young and new designer, gained fame. What did you think of her creations?
Honestly, I love the fact that it was authentic. She was thinking about it from an African perspective, and even the way her designs were, especially for women, was pretty unique. So I really liked her style. I really liked the meanings that they had to it, and starting young up until where she is right now, very commendable.
Now, I saw that section about her as a fashion designer. It started out with still pictures, and I thought, wait a second, how are we going to make this move? Yeah. And then she got to the catwalk stuff, which was great. Yeah. And then she went into the market to buy materials for making. And again, there was a lot of movement. Yeah. Talk to me about how important it is to put movement into your visuals when you're making a documentary.
I mean, when you're doing a documentary, it's like a journey. You're taking the viewers from one place to another. You want them to understand someone's starting point to the continuous place where they are in life or whatever they're doing. And in this particular documentary, like you said, we started off, with still pictures, and then we see in the runway, and then now we go ahead and we see her in the market, and she's shopping for, products and the fabrics, and she's talking to people. That's the beauty of a documentary. It's telling the story as it's moving. It's like a story in motion in itself. That's the whole point.
And anybody that's interested in fashion would be very interested in the visuals in this one.
100%.
Now, the next thing that happens, or halfway through the film, she has kind of a personal crisis. Yeah. And she needs some help.
Right.
And one of the things that was interesting was that she was kind of reluctant to look at this traditional healer thing that came from her mother. Yeah. In a way, kind of having the same objections that many people have to like Christian healers that are going to make your hand okay by chanting over you. But it was very clear during this, we're talking about spiritual healing. Yeah. We're talking about helping people mentally, emotionally, not getting their finger to go straight.
Right.
Talk to me. You had a recent experience where you were surprised to find out somebody was a Sangoma. Tell us about that.
Oh my God. I mean, first off, of course, in the documentary, like you said, she was a bit hesitant, but then she got into it and she likes it because she's merging fashion and traditional healing. But the personal experience I had, of course, we had gone to South Africa to shoot a different documentary, and we were also doing this part of a documentary with regard to museum and culture. And so we were interviewing this lady, and we find out she's also a Sangoma. But we had an interesting experience. Where we were shooting that interview, we had to first seek permission from the spirits to allow us to do, the interview there. So the lady plus two guys there, they went down on their knees and they put something on the floor and they were asking for permission. And I thought, this is pretty odd, but I didn't think much into it. And then eventually we settled on where we were going to do the interview. But in a split second, the lady sort of just reacts, and it's like she was possessed by the spirit. It doesn't sound real up until I saw it really happening. And for a few minutes, we had to wait for her like, to get back to herself, because she was lying on the ground. She was kind of hitting the ground and making some noises, and I was like, what's going on, And so we hear she's a Sangoma, and apparently the spirit spoke through her and said, we can't do the interview here. And I just thought, what? So after she got back to herself, she asked for water. We gave her water, and she said, we can't do it in this specific spot. The spirits haven't allowed us. And to be honest, I know these things do happen in African culture. I have experienced, someone who's possessed, and this whole thing about witchcraft or people doing traditional healing, it is there. Yeah. But in this particular case, I didn't expect it to happen in that interview. And, a few minutes later after that, she was pretty okay. And she was like a normal person, just talking normally. But I was a little bit scared. So being a Sangoma has its uniqueness, but I don't think I'd want to sort of get into that space. Yeah.
Well, in this documentary, in Healing Textiles, of course, our main character ends up feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah.
And she does meet another character. We do meet another character, an older gentleman that takes us through this to kind of give us the background on why this is important. What did you think of him? Did you trust him?
Oh, Pai Jacob, that's his name, I think. He was a bit funny, honestly, in the way he was speaking. I mean, I think he was okay. His points were like, people go to churches on Sunday, people go to specific places to worship, but God is everywhere. They forget that God is everywhere. And that was a point that he was making, like, you can, talk to God anywhere you want. And so him talking to spirits and, engaging her in that particular bit and telling her about, this and that, that was interesting. Personally, I would not go to a Sangoma, As a character, he was interesting, but it's not something I would engage in. Would you?
Sure. I think I'd try anything once.
Really? And so what would you expect?
Well,
like
almost anything.
No, I don't know about that.
Well, I guess if I had something heavy weighing on me, it might be helpful to feel that there was more than the support system that I have to help me out.
I think Islamically, for me as a Muslim, I don't think it's allowed, to be honest, because it's a form of, you're sort of associating God with other people, so to say. And so Islamically, it's actually not allowed. It's like going to a fortune teller or a traditional healer. So it's not something I would practice from a religious point of view. But what about being a Christian?
Well, as a Christian, you're not supposed to worship idols, etc. But I kind of think that there's a little leeway within Christianity for God to intercede through other forces, through other people, or through other. So I'm not sure that it's forbidden, perhaps frowned upon by the established church. But I think as a Christian, you can try new stuff.
Okay. Once you try, let me know. I just want to know your experience, that's all. Right.
So finally, at the end of the story, somehow the spiritualism is going to be infused into the textiles.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I thought that was interesting. Actually, the thought of it, the fact that she talks about the Capulana, which is the material and the fabric she has, and they're sort of healing it with certain herbal plants. So if it's a plant that helps with anxiety, they use that plant. They sort of dye the material with that. They like kind of boil the plant, and then they use that color and put it on the fabric, and that's going to heal you from anxiety. That's very creative. It's not bad at all, actually. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I really cottoned on to was just the whole idea that Africans grow the natural materials that go into textiles, that they don't have an opportunity through industry to make as many textiles, although something like $15 billion worth of textiles move out of Africa.
Yeah.
And that they don't get the opportunity to design clothing enough. So it's kind of one of the things I hope people will take away from the documentary is the hope that Africa can grow this industry, because it is an industry that produces an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
And Africans, have the natural resources, but aren't always given an opportunity to exercise their creativity.
Yeah, and I think that's where Africans need to take it up. I mean, these opportunities, you have to take them and not expect it to be brought to you. And like you said, we do have this sort of natural resources like the plants that are there. And African fashion is very unique. It could be different, but I think the world is actually embracing it now. If you look at some of the fashion walks that we see either in New York or London, you see they have either the Ankara, some of the African wear sort of used. So yeah, I think it's a great step.
Well, it's great to have you back, Fathiya.
Thank you.
And everybody should be looking forward to Healing Textiles, 12:30 East Africa time this Sunday. And hopefully my AI story is going to be finished the next week.
We hope so too. Thank you, Daniel.
All right. Well, stay tuned to Faces of Africa. You can find it on YouTube if you don't catch it on CGTN on Sundays at 12:30 Eastern time. This has been Daniel Funard.
And I'm Fathiya Nur.
Have a great weekend.